Hey there, gamer. Thank you for joining me for this analysis of the Paladin class. I really wanted to dig into what makes a Paladin a Paladin. So let's start off with a question that would really piss off Spoonie. What's a Paladin? So a Paladin is basically this white knight, the shining champion of the downtrodden, protector of the weak and defenseless, a colossal boy scout, and just in general, a hero. The Paladin lives by a strict code of ethics, and always tries to do the right thing. And I'm sure every fledgling Paladin that completes his or her training has the stick of righteousness shoved directly into their you-know-what. RP-wise, it seems like a lot of players play the Paladin as very rigid and almost Judge Dredd-like in their commitment to the law. Now, I don't think that's specifically necessary, because lawful good doesn't mean lawful nice, but it also doesn't mean lawful a-hole. I think it's perfectly acceptable to have a paladin who asks enemies to surrender even in the middle of a battle, and shows mercy to anyone who asks for it. If you want some good examples of paladins, Sir Galahad is going to be your go-to guy. But there are also the Jedi Knights from Star Wars. Obi-Wan Kenobi and Qui-Gon Jinn are a couple of my favorites. There's my favorite Keyblade Master like ever, Aqua, and Michael from the Dresden Files. So now that we've finished up with the RP and background malarkey, let's dig into the meat and potatoes of what the mechanics of the character are all about, starting with the core abilities. Now, Paladin is a combination of a combat character and a divine caster. The core abilities of the Paladin are Detect Evil, Smite Evil, Lay on Hands, and the Paladin Spells. Okay, now, Smite Evil is going to be your meat, your potatoes, and your cookie afterward, because that is one of the best features that a Paladin gets. And if you're playing a Paladin, by all means, use this thing. What Smite Evil does is, depending on what game you're playing, whether it's 3.5 or Pathfinder, those are the two versions I'm mainly working with here, Smite Evil does a couple of things. First off, it lets you add your charisma modifier, if any, to hit, and it allows you to add your Paladin level to damage. Now, Paladins in Pathfinder have a much, much superior version of this ability. In 3.5, you can only do this on one melee attack, and after that, it's done. You get more of them as you level up, but it's a one-time and only with melee weapons. With Pathfinder Paladins, within 30 feet, you just pick an evil creature, point at it, and say, "Face the hammer of justice, horrible beastie!" And just like that, you're adding your charisma modifier to hit and your paladin level to damage. And the really good thing about it is it lasts until the thing that you smote, is dead. And it's not specific to melee attacks. Because, correct me if I'm wrong here, a paladin firing arrows of light from a sacred bow and downing the airborne spawn of hell is pretty awesome. But this ability does come with some major strings attached. Number one, it's finite in the number of uses, even in Pathfinder. And it has to be against something that's evil. So, that's no gelatinous cubes, generally no constructs, not a whole lot of elementals, but on the plus side, against things like undead, evil line dragons, and demons and devils, things that you are really going to need to be doing damage against, you're going to have a really great ability. Because let me tell you, that archdevil that's laughing off the wizard's spellfire and resisting every single point of damage the fighter's doing to it is going to be given pause by the shining might of a paladin. Next are your lay on hands. This is what makes paladins such ideal frontline fighters, is their ability to recover their own health and to do it quickly. Now, there's some variation between 3.5 paladins and Pathfinder paladins, and as usual, Pathfinder gets the better version of the ability. Your lay on hands ability will recover a certain amount of damage from either the paladin, him or herself, or one of their allies. And in Pathfinder, they'll also be able to remove harmful status effects, which can really be the bane of any party's existence. Now let's talk about the spells. As divine casters, paladins have access to a certain, fairly small number of divine spells, but when they're going into combat, they can be very helpful. They've got pretty decent buffs, such as Bull's Strength and Bear's Endurance. They have a suite of healing spells to recover damage even more, and helpful buffs that add additional damage to their weapons. And remember, if you're playing a paladin, you want to use all of this stuff. Paladins also have some good secondary abilities. Most of these are special immunities, such as Divine Grace. Basically, this means you're immune to disease. Typically, this will kick in around level 3. And believe me, getting a disease sucks. It sucks like you wouldn't believe. And Divine Grace even applies against supernatural afflictions. And I also believe this ability lets you add your charisma modifier to all of your saves. By the way, having a high charisma modifier as a paladin is awesome. Then there's Aura of Courage. Now this means you're immune to fear effects. And again, being shaken or panicked really sucks. Now in 3.5 D&D, paladins get the assistance of an animal companion. This typically is a horse, that you can then ride heroically and gallantly into battle against the forces of darkness because you're a paladin and that's what you do. Now in Pathfinder, paladins get this thing called the Divine Bond, which can take the form of a supernaturally awesome animal companion. Hi-ho, silver away. Or they can have a divine bond with their weapon, which allows them to supernaturally empower it with weapon bonuses to damage and to hit, as well as certain other conditions like flaming or being good aligned to bypass DR. Of course, once you hit high levels as a Pathfinder Paladin, your weapons are automatically considered good aligned to bypass DR. So yeah, Pathfinder Paladins. Pretty awesome. Additionally, Pathfinder Paladins are immune to charm spells at a certain level. A certain high level, but still. Now let's just look at some of the general class features. Paladins have a lot of health, generally, with a D10 hit die. If you're doing maximum health, and that's something that I strongly encourage you to think about doing as a DM, that means your Paladin is going to have the ability to soak up a pretty decent amount of damage. Paladins also have the highest possible base attack bonus, which is always equal to their level, and they get additional attacks accordingly. In Pathfinder, Paladins have two good saves, Fortitude saves and Will saves, which makes a certain amount of intuitive sense for the Paladin. In 3.5 D&D, they only have a good Fortitude save. And you know what? I consider that to be kind of okay. I'm okay with that. Now let's talk about some of the weaknesses of the class. And just about everyone seems to think that one of the biggest weaknesses of the Paladin class is the fact that it's alignment locked to lawful good. If you want to be a paladin, you have to be lawful good. If you do something that's not lawful good as a paladin and your alignment changes, well, guess what? You don't get any of your awesome paladin powers, do ya? And you know what? That's absolutely okay. The paladin class is alignment locked for a reason. It's really good. Paladins are very independent, and they can do a ton of damage against evil creatures. Oh, and by the way, they don't need to be undead, evil dragons, or demonic monsters from the pits of hell either. It works against anything that's evil aligned. Which is why you have Detect Evil to find what's evil aligned and then smite it. But anyway, back to weaknesses of the class. I would say the limitations on spells does kind of suck, but it's really about how you use them. And for my money, the major limitation on Smite of you can only smite either once a day or one guy a day, that's also a biggin', so you gotta be really judicious in how you use Smite. Other than that, I think Paladins have a problem getting their AC to acceptably high levels. I mean, in a suit of heavy armor, you're gonna have like, what, a AC of 19 tops? It's good, but not great, especially against higher level monsters. But then there's magic armor for that, and we're just not gonna deal with that. Thank you for joining me of this analysis of what makes the Paladin class the Paladin class. If you're interested in video analysis of some of the other classes from Pathfinder or 3.5 D&D, or just general stuff on interesting features of the game, be sure and check out D6 Damage. Thank you for watching.